Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Deirdre Hughes, and I am Director of CareerChat UK. We'll just begin by sharing my slides, and that will help us set the scene. Okay, just checking that everyone can see the slides, okay, from the beginning. Okay. Are we good, Chris? Can we see the slides okay? Wonderful. Excellent. So, colleagues from around the world, we have individuals from Northern Ireland, my home country, England, Turkey, the Arab Emirates, Italy, Malta, Norway, Pakistan, Qatar, Brunei, Canada, Colombia, India, Vietnam, and perhaps a few more as well. We have 120 people registered to attend today's event, and wherever you are in the world, a very, very warm welcome. Please use the chat facility and tell us where in the world are you and is the sun shining? I'm delighted to be joined today by my co-host, Chris Webb, a colleague who will say a few words to introduce himself in a few moments, and also with Jack Dougall, who's our special guest, a secondary school teacher and founder of Ecmtutors. We'll hear more from Jack very shortly. And Laurie Stewart, a visionary founder of Mindless Academy, someone on a mission to reimagine how we prepare the next generation for life and work in a digital world. I just have a quick look at the chat. Chris, maybe you could help here around keeping an eye on the chat. We've got Laura from Dorset in the beautiful, she's sitting in the sunshine while watching. We have Finine from Finesse Careers and Empowerment from sunny Derry, Londonderry. Chelmsford, we have Laddie. We have a whole host. Patrick from Tuscany. Jack, you're in the Canary Islands. Tell us, what's the weather like in the Canary Islands?
Well, it's meant to be good, but today's cloudy. So yeah, you stitched me up. But I meant to say permanently sunny. But today it's actually, but that's kind of a change. So we don't mind it because I live in the sunshine. So yeah, I don't mind.
Excellent. Well, we have your sunshine and we are delighted.
You've pinched it.
Let's start off by just for colleagues who are joining us for the very first time, just say who we are, what we do, what our passion is, and then we can have a look at why we're all here today. So I'm Deirdre. I have been in the careers profession since 1986, so I am pretty ancient. And the work that I do across the world and here in the UK is very much looking at how can we improve career support for young people and adults in a whole range of different contexts. And of course, to improve that, we need to work with teachers, educators, community development workers, policymakers, and many others. So my passion is really around people, places, and spaces for careers support. And over the last 4 years, I've been very, very curious about AI, and we'll say a little bit more in a few minutes about what I've been doing on the AI front to bring about, if you like, our webinar series. And we have 7 webinars so far. So this is a lucky 7 if you're here today. So let me hand over to Chris. And Chris, say who you are and what's your passion.
Yes, thank you, Deirdre, and hello, everybody. You've got a great sort of international audience today. Brilliant to see. I don't have necessarily very sunny weather here too, so much like Jack, I am kind of hoping for the sun to return. Although we've been quite lucky here in South Yorkshire in the UK for the past couple of weeks, it has been absolutely stunning. So yeah, can't feel too bad about that. So I'm Chris Webb. I'm a career consultant currently working in higher education in the UK. And I also do a little bit of freelance careers writing and podcasting. I do quite a lot of work for the Career Development Institute and also for AGCAS, who are the membership body for higher education careers in the UK. And then sort of alongside that, over the past couple of years, my focus really has been on AI within career development. And that's taken a number of different forms. I've sort of written about it. I've been kind of delivering training on the subject. And I've been working with my colleague Lee Fowkes, who's based at the Open University, on a framework for professional development related to AI called the 4C framework, which I'll share in the chat as well. So yeah, for me, I think the passion is really kind of looking at the strategy for how we sort of take AI forward. So I think there's a lot being written and kind of talked about and sort of presented about AI. And I think the last couple of years has been sort of very experimentation focused in the main across the career development sector. But of course, all the way through this period, we've had people actually kind of taking this stuff forward in terms of policies and processes. And I think now we're kind of in that sort of period where all institutions and organizations involved in education and career development are having to look at what does the strategy, what does the approach look like for taking AI forward. So a lot of my work is now kind of moving into that area. And yeah, very interested to hear from our speakers today, who I know are heavily involved in this space as well.
Well, fantastic. Thanks, Chris. Really just to add to what Chris was saying, today is about you having a chance to interact with us, as well as us giving some, if you like, presentations and food for thought on the work that we do. Here's just two examples of work that I've been very much directly involved in, and was delighted to be a UK prize winner for the use of technology in career development. Now, we're all here today very much to reflect on the potential of AI to support teachers, career development professionals in a wide range of education settings, wherever you are in the world. We want to also consider some strategies for success. So whilst we might be giving you a few ideas on strategies for success in using AI and some cautionary notes as well, we want to hear about you and your experience. So again, maybe in the chat, you could just pop into the chat, what sort of AI or large language models, what are you using at the moment? Are you at the very beginning of learning about this? Are you very much heavily involved in AI creation of tools and products? Or maybe you're somewhere in between. So pop into the chat your experience. Finally, what we want to do is we want to be a bit playful today as well. And I think in our presentations that we've got for you, we'll be looking at ideas of how we can play with AI to actually make us critically aware, and also to be able to use AI as a force for social good, not just disruption for the sake of it. So we hope that you'll enjoy what we have to say. For those of you who aren't familiar with career chatbot technology, here I want to briefly introduce you to CC, Careers Information Advice and Guidance chatbot. We have been developing, we being Dr. Chris Percy and myself, over the last 3.5 years, looking at how can we make careers information advice with an inbuilt facility to use the technology for personal guidance provided by a human careers advisor. We have had, if you're somebody who's interested in looking at what kind of large language model might we trust for career support, we have had a book chapter recently published, and I've given you the link there. And of course, if you'd like to see CC in action, you could always just book a free demo. Just to say that maybe Jack and Laurie will touch on this as well, that when we talk about AI, we're not just talking about whizzy tools that sort of are there to, if you like, play with, but also that we can use AI and large language models to create dashboards, intelligence dashboards that give us some insight. In this case, we have been gathering anonymized data around what time of the day are people searching for careers, what sorts of careers are they searching for, what topics are they interested in. But that's enough about me and the work that I've been doing. Just to say, for those of you who are familiar with our work, at the end of June, we'll be stress testing a new prototype, which is specifically aimed at advisors in helping them to work effectively with adults including using large language models that can be edited, and also harnessing LLMs, large language models, for those of you who are new. Chris, can we just see in the chat what sort of AI tools are people using?
Yeah, we've got a bit of a mixture. I mean, I think it's the sort of stuff that you might expect, Deirdre. We've got Laurie's kind of mentioned about sort of the variety, I guess, of what's out there. So sort of playing around with those different LLMs, Gemini, Perplexity, Copilot. Some that are maybe more focused on image generation, like Midjourney. Some that are maybe for quite specific purposes, like Grammarly. So you know that the fact that there really is that huge kind of myriad of tools that people can access. And then in terms of some of the other feedback, yeah, some people at the very beginning of that journey with AI starting to use kind of things like Copilot a little, maybe if their organization particularly kind of invests in that, to kind of people, I know like Laddie, who's mentioned in the chat, who uses it for anything and everything from kind of career development purposes through to just coming up with a recipe that you might need, you know, for your home cooked meal at night. So I think that there is a variety in there. We've got people kind of who are just sort of starting off. We've got people who may be a little bit more kind of confident with that. And
Brilliant.
what we're seeing, I guess, is those mix of use cases, which really
Brilliant.
we're going to go into in a little bit more detail as part of the session today.
Fantastic. And hi, Laurie, who's with us as well. Laurie, you might want to say a quick hello. And we're really looking forward to hearing more about you and the sorts of AI tools that you're using as well.
Thank you, Deirdre. Hello. Hi, Chris. Hi, Jack. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here. I'm Laurie. I'm originally from Liverpool, but now living in sunny Lisbon. So I swapped 300 days of rain for 300 days of sunshine quite cleverly. And I'm founder of Mindless Academy, which I'll be sharing more on AI and the future of work from our perspective and what we do with students as well.
Oh, that's great. Well, look, everyone, I thought Chris and I thought what might be a good way to get us into the conversation would be to sort of do a little icebreaker around this in a perfect world. What should AI be helping educators with, you know, besides saving time? So I hope that most of you are aware and know how to use Mentimeter. You'll see here, you just go to www.mentimeter.com and use this code, which is on the slide, or you could put your phone, if you like, to the QR code. And we're just interested to hear from you. Remember, no right, no wrong answers in this. We just want to start the conversation around, in this perfect world, what should AI be helping educators with besides saving time? So please do share with us in Mentimeter. I'll stop sharing and we'll just take a look to see what sort of words are popping up on Mentimeter from you. Any problems with Mentimeter or accessing it? Don't be afraid to just turn on your mic and let us know, and we'll do our best to
Yeah.
But look, brilliant.
If you're having any problems with the Mentimeter, do feel free to kind of put your thoughts in the Zoom chat as well, and we can always kind of sort of fold those into the discussion if Menti's not working as intended.
Well, I have to sigh relief here, a sigh of relief here. It's working, and I'm sharing my screen, and isn't it so interesting? Planning, that big word, planning. Yeah.
It's a real variety, isn't it? And I think what's quite interesting about some of the language, and we've sort of seen this kind of in the higher education sector, is what that might mean for the person who shared it. So, for example, the idea of kind of planning, in terms of how you might use AI for planning, for some people that might be literally writing a plan using something like ChatGPT. So, you know, I need to create a session for this. Can you write me a plan structure? Or for others, it might be that idea of kind of like iterating feedback loops. So actually, I want to kind of work through some ideas, but I want to actually kind of then put that onto paper or digitally kind of myself. So I think what's really interesting with all of this is the terminology. It's kind of, what do we mean by planning? What do we mean by efficiency? And what do we mean by using it as a collaborative partner? It'd be very interesting to hear how different people feel those expressions mean to them.
Yeah, and we can maybe pick up on, you know, someone has put in here, going beyond the norm. You know, one of the big questions now is, what is the norm? You know, and again, as a teacher, Jack, you in your context, you know, it's just been a complete sort of explosion of AI that's out there. So how on earth do you know really what's the best thing to use? So if you want to comment, or we'll hear more from you in a few minutes around your formal presentation. But any surprises in there, Jack, that you see?
No, no.
Yeah.
I think that's
It's a
as
great
expected.
list,
I
I
have to
think.
say, yeah,
Yeah,
I would say
brilliant
so.
list. Great, great. We'll send everyone out a copy of the slides afterwards, and indeed the recording, and we'll make sure that we include that in the set that you receive. So don't worry if you're somebody maybe like me that likes to take notes and things. Okay, just got a few little, if you like, teasers from Chris now around the whole AI piece, around from chalkboards to chatbots. Over to Chris, and then Chris will very briefly then hand over to Jack.
Yes, thanks, Deirdre. So I just thought this might be kind of like a nice introduction to what we're going to be kind of talking about today, because as you sort of referenced there, the speed with which, people are kind of adopting and implementing AI, and I suppose how much we're hearing about it, is kind of continuing this hype that we thought, might kind of die off over the last couple of years. It just seems to be kind of accelerating as obviously the models change, as new kind of tools are introduced, as sort of Laddie's mentioned in the chat, existing tools get new functionality. So the ChatGPT kind of image model now, the quality with which it can produce things like infographics, the quality of text within those images now has led to kind of a whole new range of uses that it's kind of being used for. So we thought that actually, while we're kind of talking about this, we're talking about kind of the hype, we're talking about this idea that, AI isn't going away, which is kind of something we're hearing quite a lot. But actually, that can be quite a sort of cynical sentiment, I think, because what it sort of suggests is, well, look, there's nothing you can do about it. You don't have any agency or intentionality over how you can use AI. And I think the truth is the opposite. We actually do. All of the decisions that are being taken at the moment about how to use AI are, for the time being, human decisions. We're deciding the purpose we're using it for. And I think that's kind of quite important sort of thing to bear in mind. So what I wanted really to flag just to start with is, when we're talking about this idea of AI as being transformative for different industries, and obviously today we're talking about education, it's always worth us just sort of peeking beyond the curtain and beyond the headlines to see kind of what's actually happening. Now, this first sort of study that you can kind of see on screen, you may be quite familiar. This is one that was sort of funded by the World Bank, set in Nigeria. And what they found was over kind of a 6-week period through using AI for virtual tutoring, they saw a 2-year, or also they claimed 2-year kind of progress for the students kind of involved across sort of 3 areas. So it was English, maths, and AI literacy, and English was the big one that they were kind of focusing on. And it was really quite interesting because obviously this was a massive increase in performance based on what you would read from the study. And of course, what was kind of touted as the success factor was AI. But if you just switch to the next slide for me, Deirdre, what I kind of really wanted to highlight here was a lot of I guess the report that wasn't surfaced as much or shouted about as much was that actually the huge impact that the teachers involved had. So yes, AI was the tool, AI was the vehicle that had allowed them to kind of make this progress. And clearly there are benefits for the scalability of kind of personal tutoring through AI. We know how impactful personal tutoring can be. I know Jack's going to kind of talk about that in his slides. But I think what was really interesting with this was that actually this project was led by teachers. It was led by domain experts. They were the ones who kind of set this up, established it, who had the knowledge to be able to ensure that that runs successfully. And actually that wasn't always kind of floated, or wasn't the big highlight that was always shouted about kind of in the press or when people were talking about this study. So I think that it's an important thing to bear in mind. And this next kind of study you can sort of see on screen, again, you might have seen this kind of pop up on LinkedIn regularly. This was sort of a meta-analysis that was talking about basically the positive performance, or the almost entirely positive performance that these two researchers had found in terms of the impact of AI on learning performance. And they looked across, again, a number of different domains here in terms of kind of things like skills development, developing higher order thinking. But again, if we move to the next slide, Deirdre, what sort of came out of this that was quite interesting is that a number of people now have been debunking this meta-analysis. Not necessarily to say that the kind of the approach or sort of the idea of doing these types of studies doesn't have worth, but more the fact that the way these studies were undertaken and the choice of studies that were used were not of particularly high quality. Many of them didn't have comparable kind of control groups. So actually, are these big headlines necessarily reflected? And are we definitely seeing the kind of return on investment that is being claimed? Certainly in industry at the moment, there are a lot of companies who are finding that actually AI isn't quite proving the return on investment they thought it was. So I think this is still not a settled picture. And I know that's part of what we're going to be discussing today. And so really, I just wanted to sort of lead into Jack with just kind of talking a little bit about this idea of, well, actually, what is AI without us leading on it? And obviously, we have two experts in their space here with us today. And I think it's a really crucial thing whenever we're talking about AI to acknowledge that those who are getting high value out of it or doing really impressive things with it are experts in their domains. They understand the problems they face, they understand the challenges, they understand where AI could have an impact, sometimes through experimentation, sometimes through just having used it for a long time, and sometimes through pilots and projects and things that they've kind of launched. So one of the pieces of work I've been kind of doing at the University of Huddersfield has been around staff training and development, and looking at kind of how people are using AI, and then actually what those kind of individual and collective training needs might be. And we've seen sort of these kind of four areas come up quite commonly. So this idea of like production and task replacement. So that idea of maybe using ChatGPT to ChatGPT something, like you might have Googled something, in kind of the career sector, or for me particularly, this idea of kind of co-creation or production. So actually creating personalized careers resources much, much quicker using ChatGPT, but actually with me sort of steering the process. We've seen lots of people using it as a digital aid or tool. So I use it kind of quite frequently as a job description translator. It's got very complex job descriptions, maybe written for graduates, and using kind of ChatGPT to almost pull that apart and describe that in a more simplistic way, or in a way that kind of outlines the key skills maybe much more clearly perhaps than it actually says in the job description. And obviously we're also seeing kind of AI used really frequently as that thinking partner. So, I'm coming up with ideas for an event or for a session. I've got my initial ideas. I want a bit of a feedback loop. I want maybe some different perspectives, and using it as that kind of collaborative partner we saw people talk about in the Menti as well. But I suppose what I wanted to kind of finish on and pass over to Jack on is this idea that all of these different things that I'm using AI for, that lots of professionals are using AI for in career development and in education. And ultimately, to be able to assess the quality of those outputs and the usefulness, domain knowledge is that common denominator and that common factor. So really, when we kind of hear from our two guests today, I just want to kind of float that out there with the audience and ask people to kind of keep in mind that, who is steering this when we're talking about AI and the use of AI? Is it us steering this? Yes or no? And also, how much control do we have over that in our context? So with that in mind, Jack, I'd like to kind of pass over to you. I know you've got some slides to share. I'm really interested to hear about the work that you're doing in this space as well.
Okay, we're going to deal with the technical first. Am I going to try and share from my screen? And let's see if that works. This is the nervous part. So
let's give it a go. Let's give it a go.
We've got a backup, Jack.
Exactly.
Don't worry if need be.
Right. How are we doing? Are we seeing my screen?
That's coming through. Yeah, perfect.
Hey, that's win number one. Excellent. Right. I'm a teacher. I don't know whether that was said. Yes, I do a million other things at the moment, but I've just rushed home from school. I'm a secondary school teacher. And because I'm a teacher, I hate webinars where it's just me talking and nothing happening. So I need a bit of interaction. And it's not, ooh, hang on, I spoke too soon. It's not going, there we go.
You go at the top from the beginning?
It's there. I got it. I just wanted to keep my script there.
I was going to say, Jack, do you want to put it in full screen mode, or do you want?
I'm all right, because then I can see where I'm going, because this is last minute. so let's see how we go.
Okay.
Right. As I was saying, I am a teacher, so I do like a little bit of interaction. I hate talking to a blank screen. And so far, we've been talking about AI, and nobody's mentioned everyone's favorite AI phrase of prompt engineering. I think we got one prompt in earlier, but no one's mentioned prompt engineering. So a challenge for you on my screen. I've got three things. I've got three different prompts. I want you, obviously you're not going to write in the box, but have a think about it. And then Deirdre, I might even put you on the spot if that's all right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, just for a bit of pressure. Put them in order and why, but I'll read it out because some people might just be listening. So someone typed into, we're talking ChatGPT. You type into ChatGPT, summarize this article. Maybe you're uploading a PDF. Have a think about that. Is that good and why, or is it bad? Then you've got the alternative option, summarize this article about recycling for a 6th grade class. Is that better? And why? Should you be doing the second one? And then the third one, summarize the main ideas from this article about recycling, focus on what middle school students should understand, include 3 facts, and keep the tone engaging and clear for a 6th grade science class. Score there out of 10 and why? Deirdre, I'm putting you on the spot.
That's okay. I go for the third one. I would say 10 if I was a teacher. I'm pushed for time. I think it would give me very concrete, specific. I'm being very clear about who my target audience is. The middle school students should understand. I might tweak it a little bit more actually and say what age range.
Okay.
But I think if it were me, I would be going for the third one first because of it being more explicit. If I was really busy, I'd probably go for 1, just summarize the article. It depends on how I want.
We're going for
what I want to
perfection,
use
though.
for it.
We're going for perfection. We've got to have perfect.
I'm sticking with 10.
You're going with a third one.
And why?
And maybe in the chat, people can put in their options. I'm saying nothing. I'm saying nothing. I'm going to come back.
Maddie says she likes 2 because she wants to see where ChatGPT goes with it.
I haven't got the comments on my screen, so someone says
okay.
2. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Right.
Michelle agrees with me. The third one is best, specific, and it helps it be more personal. Dan says the same. So yeah, we're erring on the 3s and a 2.
All right, well, I'll hand out some gold stars later on, but we'll come back to it. I'm going to do the boring bit and introduce myself. So as I said, I am a full-time teacher, but why am I speaking? I've gone a little bit beyond the title of secondary school teacher. About 3 years ago, I think, I got very frustrated at the international school that I teach at, that there was nothing to catch up the children at my school. I teach IGCSEs and A-levels and IB, and there was nothing to catch up the children who missed education because of COVID. So I set up a peer tutoring website called Ecmtutors, the idea being that there was some catch-up system. Over that time since running it, there's a website there. I was getting volunteers. It's all totally free. I just wanted to help out. I wanted something originally for the children at my school. It then expanded and went international and nearly killed me in the process of lots of work. But during that time, AI exploded onto the scene and it's changed. But we'll come back to that in a moment. As I have run through that, the list of things I'm doing is very boring, but ridiculously long. And that's just the screen. So I work with UNESCO. I was in a conference with them at school today, various different things. I write for the TES. And at the moment, I've got 2 YouTube channels, which I don't know what I'm doing. And it's my question of why, but I've got an AI channel. Because in half an hour of talking, you won't hear all the waffle I've got to say. So if anyone wants, there'll be more in there where you can attack me. And then I also run a business channel because my main subject is geography, humanities, and business. And I run a business channel to help out children who've got their GCSE on Friday. And that's currently popular. So the question on all of that, I'll come back. Why? How am I possibly going through those? But into what I'm aiming for from this. As I say, lots of webinars where you kind of sit at the screen or someone makes you, if you like the teacher at my school, you put it on in the background and you go, come on, let's get on with things. So in order to try and prevent that, I'm not going to try and do too much in 40 minutes. I'm just going to be controversial because at the very least, you'll be annoyed with me rather than bored with me. So look out for the controversial things I say. Feel free to attack me. Feel free to go away afterwards and be angry and all those things. But I'm trying to give some thinking points because I think that's where AI needs to be. So first, controversial thing. And feel free to interrupt, Deirdre, if I'm not making any sense. If you can't hear me, please do talk to me or anything like that. Or if I'm droning on or running out of time because I didn't check when I'm meant to finish by. So let me know. But my first controversial thing, I hate and have hated for what, 2.5 years, I think, when it first came out. And it's still happening at my school. Lovely teachers, but all the time they come up, I am in the staff room, I caught such and such using ChatGPT. And I've hated that phrase since that. I caught Tony, I caught Vicky, oh, I'm giving them a detention. I caught them using ChatGPT. That is my pet hate and always has been. Now, why is it my pet hate? I think currently it's updated since I first, but I'm going to talk through why I originally hated it. But currently it's the wrong approach. You should, controversial thing number 1, you should be teaching the children about AI. And a video on my YouTube channel if you want to see it, but essentially the world is embracing it. Donald Trump, America's just put an order that it has to be taught in schools. UNESCO, that I work with, is bringing it into the UNESCO education policy that teachers need to know how to teach it. Who else we got? We've got China, who's bringing it even in the primary schools. We've got various other countries at various stages, but essentially it's coming to everyone. The Arab Emirates have just said it's essential. If you're not teaching your children, you're leaving them behind, because we're preparing them for their future, not the current thing. So that's my modern answer to, yes, you should be teaching them. But that wasn't my original frustration. My original frustration, when the teachers say the children are using ChatGPT, well, my question is how? How? It's not, are they using ChatGPT? How are they using ChatGPT? It's a ridiculous thing. When you were talking about the benefits of it, yeah, it's really difficult. And I see all of those research papers, and I have to say, I don't really like many of them. There's another controversial. Most of them are out of date because they're done on old versions, and the pace of any research paper is so far behind. Yeah, I read those things. They did it with ChatGPT 3.5. That has nothing to do with what we're currently seeing. By the time it gets published in a research paper, it's completely out of date. So I'm wary. Controversial thing number one, I'm wary of any research papers giving data. It's not what the children are using in the classroom, and it's not keeping pace. But I deviated off into being angry. But the reason I say how is because I think the conversation, and I said it 2 years ago, which originally raised my profile, is, are they using it to increase their efficiency, or are they using it to make them more effective? That is a key question that I don't think just children are getting wrong. I think everyone is getting wrong. Controversial and big boastful of me, but I really do feel that it has dual purpose, and both are important. Sometimes efficiency, being a business studies teacher, efficiency is getting more output with less input in a shorter period of time. So that would be, you want to use it with your lesson plans, you want to mark books or something like that, then yes, it has its place. Businesses are fascinated by that. Businesses want that. They want efficiency. They want to get more profit in a shorter period of time. So businesses are obsessed with efficiency. But as an educator, I'm not interested in efficiency per se, particularly a humanities teacher. I'm interested in using it to make me more effective. And the British government is a bit like, you can use it, and they're pro, you should be using it, teachers, you can help with your lesson plans, you can make you more efficient. And I just get so frustrated. I say, that's lovely. But actually, you know what? It doesn't save me time. It doesn't make me more efficient. I use it so much. I take on more of these job roles and speaking engagements because I can, because it's helped me with efficiency. But then I've become far more of a perfectionist. When I write things now, I'll go back and forth. It hasn't saved me time, but what I would say it has done is it's made me better at things. It's made me more effective. So I say, well, that's what you should be asking about the children. Has the child used ChatGPT? They've used it. I saw them. They had it open all the time. Have they used it to save time on their homework because they wanted to do an hour's homework in 2 minutes? Well, you might have an objection to that. Fair enough. Although it is a skill businesses want them to do. In the future, they won't want children who take an hour to write a one-line email for the life they go. But as a teacher, no, I don't want that. I don't want them using it for efficiency. But if you're telling me they've used AI, ChatGPT, to understand the lesson that I've taught better, well, why am I objecting to that? What's my problem with that? That seems bizarre. So I think that's the first thing that people should be saying, and you should be thinking about your AIEOU splitter. Are you looking to AI to make you more efficient or to make you better? They're different things. Okay. From there, I'm going to continue with those two words. I'm a bit obsessed with efficiency and efficacy. And I'm now going to talk about learning specifically. Do we need it in the learning environment? Do we need ChatGPT to make our learning more efficient or more effective? So again, I'm going to throw a screen up. I'm going to pass it, Deirdre, if I can call you back in again. Sorry, I'm using, interactive. I'm trying to get someone. You can have a read.
Yeah.
So here we go. I'll read it out. And what do you think? And you don't have to answer straight away. I'll give you some thinking time. So let's pretend that you have to learn something incredibly complicated that you have no understanding of, be it, for me, quantum mechanics. I don't know what that is. But let's say I have to learn quantum mechanics, and I need to, on pain of death, need to understand this stuff. And I've got these various options that I can use to learn it, me as an adult. I can either be in a lecture with 300 people led by an expert professor, I can Google it. I can get a well-known and respected textbook covering the subject matter. I can YouTube it. I can YouTube it and watch a YouTube. Or I can have a one-to-one lesson with an expert, very good tutor, and we'll take the nerves out of it. That you're not shy to ask them. Have a little think, put them in order. The rest think as well. Where are you at? Which would you use to learn?
Maybe we can get in the chat. People
Perfect.
can also, if you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 options there. Yeah, colleagues, and please do use the chat as well. Well, I'm looking at this, you see,
just very quickly, Deirdre, just while you're answering that. So if you are sharing this in the chat, please could you just, when you see the little chat box, you've got the little blue bar and you've got options. Could you make sure you click everyone so that you're sharing it in the chat so everybody can see? Because some of us are just going directly to hosts and panelists. So just a really quick thing, just so that we can make sure we're seeing all the great stuff that's coming through.
Oh, thanks, Chris. I think I might have been guilty of that. Now, okay, Jack, I'm going to say that I am a woman of a certain age, and therefore my kind of education, I'm someone in their 60s, okay, age 60 plus, I have to say. So, you know, I like the old well-known and respected textbook covering a subject matter, because that's how I've kind of learned my academic career to do that. However, I am becoming a bit more savvy around thinking, well, yeah, I'll Google it and I'll YouTube it if I think it's a good YouTube. So I kind of mix it up. So if you ask me to rank them in preference, 1 is my old-fashioned, if I've got time, I go for 1. 2 would probably be Google, yeah. 3 would be YouTube. 4 would be the one-to-one with the expert teacher, and then 5 would be the lecture with 300 others. I like personalized approaches, and I really don't want to sit in a place with 300 being lectured at. Does that help?
Brilliant.
It's
okay.
Jack, I know you can't necessarily see the chat, so I'm just going to run through some of these because I had some really interesting responses.
Yeah.
Deirdre, I'm really surprised that one-to-one was so low for you, because for me that was absolutely number 1 for me.
She stitched me right up, didn't she? Yeah, brilliant.
Well, exactly, because I thought, well, you know, the thing is that it's all about if you're time poor, and also particular learning styles.
True.
So I think
Okay.
we need to think about people's learning styles and time
poor. It's interesting that this is kind of reflected in some of the sort of feedback that we've had. So we've had a few people kind of saying that they've got, you know, 5, so the one-to-one lesson is kind of their top one. Lecture with 300 attendees led by an expert. For some people, that was kind of near the top, first or second. For others, rock bottom. So maybe a little bit of kind of a split there. Google kind of featuring quite highly, but Laurie's kind of made the point that actually, you know, would it really be Google now, or actually would it just be ChatGPT?
I'm going old. It meant Google search. It meant old Google. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So, and interestingly, YouTube's popped up a bit as well. Although Alex made a good point that actually, YouTube, maybe if I can compare a range, but maybe not just kind of one video, which I think is you know, sort of reasonable to say. A couple of people sort of talking about this idea of YouTube being perhaps a little bit higher, representing maybe where we are now and how often we kind of lean on YouTube. And Alex has made a really good point there about actually you could combine 2 of these, because quite often now you have that long form content of experts almost giving one-to-ones on YouTube directly to an audience. So it's a really, really interesting mix.
That's a good question.
And lots of great stuff in the chat, which we can kind of pick up as we go along.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, I'm going to take it back to that. So there's one odd one out in the list. Any the odd one out? Deirdre, the odd one out? It could be any of them. I know. I'm used to being a child.
I don't know. Would it be the lecture? Would that be the odd one out?
No. There we go. It's the one-to-one lesson that was the one that we were going. The one-to-one lesson, and I'm going to come back to why from, again, a business perspective. And you can probably see on my screen down at the bottom there. All of the others are a one-way learning. So if we go back to this list, one way. Now, businesses are, as a business studies teacher, we talk about effective communication. How do we have effective communication? There is one way learning where you impart knowledge. You tell a story and you have a receiver. Efficient learning is one way. You mentioned time. Yeah, efficient. It's efficient to have imparting information, but it's not effective. Effective learning, effective communication isn't quicker, but it's two-way. That is where we have a sender and a receiver. We have a message being sent, and then the receiver could be visual, looks puzzled, says, I don't understand that, gives feedback, and then adapted and rolled round. Now we've got, why am I mentioning all this? We've got an education system in the world. I'm going controversial again, big, deep, philosophical. We've got an education system set up on efficiency, not on effective. That's the problem in the world. Now, if we like research papers, coming back to it, if we like research paper, the answer is very clear of which one you should be going. Bloom, I think 1986, did a research from Bloom, who did Bloom's taxonomy. If any teachers out there will have heard of that one, you maybe haven't heard of the 2 sigma problem. And this is going back to what originally set me up. Bloom did some research and he said there is it's a 2 sigma benefit of having two-way communication, of having feedback. That you take very weak children and make them average. You take average children and make them brilliant, independent of learning styles, because remember, with a one-to-one good tutor, you fit to the learning style. You respond, you get the feedback. Oh, well, I like it as a picture. All right, here's a picture. I like it with words. All right, here's words. So the learning styles are kind of taken out of that. So Bloom did this research and he said it's the 2 sigma problem. It's called a problem because it can't happen in the world. We can't have one-to-one, two-way communication with all of the children on the planet. We've got an education system set up for efficiency. And I think it's incredibly unfair. Am I going to change it? But I think it's incredibly unfair. And if we look at this slide here, effective learning is for the privileged few. The more money you get, the more access you have as child or adult to effective learning. So the top left is the screen. As I mentioned, I've moved on from just being locally to my school. I work with schools in Malawi, and that is a school in Malawi where they have 250 children per class. That's not two-way learning. That's one way. That's a teacher talking. They get it or they don't. The end. We then go to this image, which I just picked from the internet, a private school. Private schools, classes go down. We get smaller class size. We go up to A level. Well, the smaller the class size, the more opportunity there is for two-way learning. But even at this private school, well, that's not full-on one-to-one learning. So we have a massive tutor industry that tops this up. And IB, my personal nemesis a lot of the time. But if you want one-to-one in the IB, it's very, very advantageous, but it's probably very small. But if you can see there, you with lovely Lanterna Education, I hope no one's on here from that, but from that tutoring company, why I originally, you can get 15 hours of one-to-one tutoring for the bargain price of 1,313 euros. It was those prices that got me to set up a peer tutoring company for free, because that to me was outrageous, that the children who missed education were forced to pay 1,300. But as I said, it continues into real life that we have consultancy fees. If you're talking about, because I know it's not all education here, but you know what, you want a consultancy fee. How much are they? What you're getting with a consultancy fee is one-to-one, I imagine, that you're getting a feedback into those. University lectures, well, one-way learning. As we go up into light, as adults, if we're of a certain age, we accept, I don't have one-to-one. How have I taught myself all of the AI things? How have I taught myself all the things I know? It's through one-way learning. It's through YouTube videos. Now, some are better than others. I'd probably maybe prefer YouTube to just reading a textbook now, but it's still one-way learning. Just going back to a number, this is an article that I wrote. I've got one coming out on this topic in the TES soon. This is one that's coming out for UNESCO that I wrote. It's just a little phrase from there. But if you're thinking, oh, you're making it all up, there isn't really a need for one-way learning. This is the numbers to it, and this is what we have. So it's 288 billion is going to be sent on private tutors by 2030. Best guess. Really difficult to know because it's black market in most countries. And what I've learned from being with UNESCO, actually, I thought this was all UK and Spain and those. No, it's not. Actually, there's a massive industry in the poorer countries of the world as well. Poor people are using a lot of their money to get ahead in education, to get private tutors. So 288. You compare that to the Sustainable Development Goal that UNESCO need, which is 97 billion. 288 billion is being spent. So we have an equity of learning issue. Going back to
got a few more minutes, Jack.
Sorry, yeah, I've got to speed up. Yeah, yeah.
It's okay.
So why am I doing all this? Because we've got this equity issue. I'm not going to wrap up with 2 minutes. AI can come in and help. AI can solve this. That's how I've moved from one-to-one tutoring to AI. I'm pausing because it's now got to think. 2 minutes doesn't give me a lot to go into the actual AI of this. AI can solve. I'm going to jump to it. AI can solve this if used correctly, if used for effective, not efficiency. So I'm going to go back to that prompt. I asked you, put them in order. Here's my answer. Here's my controversial. All terrible. All terrible. Now, those prompts came from OpenAI's advice. And I work with them, but they gave the K-12 mastering prompts. I hate the word prompts. I think they are all terrible. They all encourage you to get a neat little Wikipedia one-way communication style piece of information. That isn't how we learn. What you should be doing instead is chatting. We need to unlearn the way of using technology. Google, Alexa, Siri has all taught us to one-way communicate. That you ask Siri, what is it? And Siri doesn't give you an answer, you accept it. Now, if you unlearn, if you start by saying, hello, how are you? Then you're engaging your brain and being in a two-way conversation. And then you're going to get receiver and feedback, because AI now can analyze. It doesn't just give an answer. What children should be using, and my children are using, is saying, this is what I understand about things. Tell me where I'm going wrong. And just like a human, it can analyze those things and it will say, right, but you're misunderstanding these points. And it's a loop. If you're getting bad outcome, it's because you're leaving the conversation too soon. I'm trying to do it in 2 minutes, but therefore controversial. I am saying humanize it, anthropomorphize AI. Now that is massively controversial. Sam Altman said, how much do you spend on people saying please and thank you? He said tens of millions, you never know. Very sinister, but I completely agree with him. My advice to teachers is start with please, because it helps you unlearn and you change your mindset into two-way communication. You're going to chat and it's not just giving you a ready-made, efficient answer. Final thing, which I did quite well to get it into 3 minutes, even if it was. Final thing to say, that's incredibly controversial. There are pros and cons of that, but I will add a caveat to that. I've got a 5-year-old. Now, my 5-year-old, I'm telling people, say please and thank you. Terrible advice for my 5-year-old, because my 5-year-old has nothing to unlearn. He is from a totally different world. He doesn't, when I have ChatGPT or I'm speaking to it or I'm on in the background or doing that, he thinks it's chatty GPT and he will speak to it exactly as if it's his grandparents on the phone. He does not even remotely think about prompt engineering it or efficiency. He will just two-way communicate and will get good outcome. So what do I say to him? It is not a human. Don't say please and thank you. So that comes with a massive caveat in all of this. Those of us of a certain age, we need to, in the short term, overcome it and see it for our effective use. Think of it as a human in the short term, but know that it's not. But for the new generations of children coming through, they haven't got our learned problems. And therefore, we need to be very careful. And that's how all of this stuff in AI is. Everything is changing by the day. Anyone who tells you they got the answers or knows everything as if I'm coming in and saying, do this, it'll change by tomorrow or next week. So everything's with a caveat. That was over 2 minutes, but not too much. There we go.
No, great, Jack. In the chat, we've got, I think it's Patrick in the chat, basically saying, "Oh, can we have more of Jack? You know, you're really sparking interest here." And I think lots of, I've just asked if there were any specific questions, but I think what we should do, because what you've done is, I think you've really opened our minds here to sort of really think about how we're using AI. And, you know, we're talking about playing with it, you know, playing with it for what purpose. But we can see here, you know, I think it was Laddie said, I ask AI, how are you? And AI replies back, I am fine, but please remember that, it's just moving. I'm fine, but please remember, it's moving up and down.
It says it doesn't have. Remember, I don't have human feelings, which is just
Okay.
quite sort of somewhat meta response.
It's very interesting. Now, so can I just sort of hold on to this fact that let people sort of digest what you're saying, and let's start maybe hand over to Laurie, who's going to give us another perspective as well. If any burning questions for Jack, just put it in the Q&A, and I promise you that we will make time for Q&A. Laurie, just over to you and sort of your reactions to what we've heard, and maybe would you like to share your own slides, or would you like me to drive your slides for you?
Yeah, sounds good. I'll share my slides now, and there's
Lovely.
definitely some similar thinking in some ways to what Jack's
Yeah,
just shared, and hopefully I'll share
just
some more perspectives there as well.
yeah, just as you're sharing that,
Perfect.
just to say I spoke at a keynote conference on Thursday last week, and I met a woman who's got an AI boyfriend, and she has to remind herself as she shares her deepest thoughts with her AI boyfriend that it's just a code, but told me that she's finding it difficult to switch him off. Because he doesn't answer back, and he tends to be very empathetic. But anyway, just I thought I'd throw that in. Okay,
Brilliant.
Laurie, over to you and your great work, AI and the future of work.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Deirdre.
Jack, ever so much. Thank you.
Thank you. So hi, for anyone who's joined partway through, I'm Laurie, founder of Mindless Academy. I've got 15 years international experience in business strategy, and actually more focused on digital transformation in recent years at global brands. And then 5 years leading Mindless Academy, developing experience across the UK higher education sector, really specialising in integrated employability. I turned 40 this year, so hence the silly sunglasses on the side there in my picture. Off we go into Mindless Academy and who we are and what we do. So we partner with education providers, with charities and employers to unlock human potential. We have a suite of virtual work experience programs that are designed to empower students with 3 things: the mindset, the skills, and the experience that they need to thrive. If you want to find out more about our programs, you can head to mindlessacademy.com. In this quick talk, I'll go through AI and the future of work, what we believe to be the essential employability toolkit to help nurture leaders to enter that world of work and to future leaders. And then AI in action at Mindless Academy. So some examples, Chris asked me to bring to life some examples of how we're actually using AI, not just in our programs for students, but also in our team. So AI and the future of work. Now, I love this topic. I could be here for hours talking about this, and I immerse myself in this daily. So I'm signed up to the Rundown AI newsletter, which is brilliant. I've just finished the Diary of a CEO's latest podcast, which is all about AI in the future. So constantly kind of trying to get my head around this fascinating and possibly barely unfathomable topic. And I think when it comes to, I'm immersing myself in real people who are deep into this industry. So AI experts who spend their days, immersing themselves in it and developing programs and software and all these things and large language models. And you hear quite extreme hypotheses, I think, on what the future looks like. We've got people talking about the doom and gloom and where this might lead to mass unemployment and civil unrest in the future. And then you've got others saying, actually, we might find cures to all of our diseases and actually find better ways to live and generate from our natural resources. So there's extremes in terms of where this might take us in the future. And I think the only thing we can all agree on is that it's quite uncertain, and the future of work feels very, very uncertain right now. And that's just how it is. So how do we get ourselves to a state and a state of mind where we can accept that uncertainty and then navigate it along the way as well? So for me, mindset is everything. There's a reason why we're called Mindless Academy. It's actually about being less mindless about the way that we show up in the world. And I think the number one thing that we need to be helping future leaders and ourselves, by the way, is building strong mental and emotional foundations. I really feel like that's the solid foundation that underpins any success in the future of work, or even today's world of work. And then we look at where kind of the labour market's going. It is already pivoting from roles-based to skills-based economy. And in this world, yes, data literacy and AI fluency are absolutely fundamental. And I think that goes across every sector and every role. I think no matter whether you work in retail, healthcare, legal, we all need to have education. We all need to have an understanding of what's going on in the world of AI and the digital space. But again, and I'm going to say this repeatedly throughout, it does sit along these really human-centric skills, adaptability, emotional intelligence, all of this stuff, like a real hunger for learning and never stopping learning as well. I think that's the shift in the way that we see building our careers now is I have to really master learnability as well, because constantly learning new tools, constantly learning new topics. So we're moving towards skills-based economy. And I'm excited about it. I'm so excited about it. The mission for Mindless was always about unlocking human potential. It began with my own personal story and unlocking my own potential, and now doing that through our experiences with students and grads. But I really think that this AI is taking that potential to a whole other level. And it really does belong to those who think creatively, work empathetically, and are hungry to evolve. So it really isn't just about the future of work, it's about the future of human potential. So on to the next chapter, the Essential Employability Toolkit. And I actually developed this before really playing in the space of education and employability, because for me, these three things made sense when it came to building my own career. So at Mindless Academy, we believe this Essential Employability Toolkit includes three things: core skills, digital skills, and green skills. And I would still say the big bulk of this comes down to the core skills, the human skills: self-awareness, emotional intelligence, adaptability, critical thinking, resilience, growth mindset. Digital skills, it's about being digitally literate and fluent. Having AI proficiency and being able to prompt engineer is one of the many tools and many skills that we can develop within the world of AI. And lastly, I think this is a really important one that shouldn't be forgotten. It is about having green skills as well, and that comes down to ethics and impact and thinking consciously and responsibly in every way that we show up in our lives, not just in the world of work. But it's great for students and grads to have knowledge and awareness of social environmental issues. So everything we do at Mindless links back to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So we've kind of got that angle in there as well. And I feel like if we're sending leaders out into the world, this is the essential employability toolkit to equip them with as they do so. And again, I'm coming back to back this with what employers say. So it's not just us thinking this, that we've got all sorts of recent reports there. This is from the Institute of Student Employers Survey 24, LinkedIn Global Green Report 23, and the World Economic Forum report. I think that was also 24. So 43% of employers are saying that grads need more self-awareness. This is one of many stats that highlight the need for those core skills. 90% of employers are saying that the need for AI and data skills is on the rise. And then 1 out of 3 job listings, I think this is on LinkedIn, require at least one green skill. So this is evident out there that these three things that we're saying is essential for the employability toolkit are also being echoed by what employers are saying too. And it comes back to these human skills, because I think if we wanted to develop an AI mindset, actually, it again starts with us, the humans behind AI. So how can we do that? We tap into things like at Mindless, developing a growth mindset. That's the hunger, that's the appetite, that's the attitude of wanting to never stop learning. Curiosity comes with that, exploration, playfulness, communication as well. We talk about prompt engineering, very like in a technical way of saying, you talk about anthropomorphizing, I can't say that word. It's communicating with AI. It really is. It's communication skills. And the better you get at communication, the better the outputs you're going to get from AI. It's being adaptable. I think critical thinking is so important right now, actually, because there is fake news everywhere, and AI doesn't necessarily always bring up facts when it claims to do so. You actually have to go in and challenge it and check it and come at all angles. So critical thinking is one of the most important skills. And then problem solving as well, from micro problems to macro problems. How can we use these technologies and these tools to help us do that? So I think developing an AI mindset is through being more human and more aware of our human skills. Lastly, I hope I'm going through this at a pace that everybody's good with. I think we're going to wrap up on time. Is AI in action at Mindless Academy? So I was talking about this recently with somebody. Sometimes we get taught things, but we don't get explained. We're not told why we're learning these things. And I think that's where it all starts, is understanding actually what's the reason for needing to know these things. So at Mindless, AI is a huge part of what we do in all of our experiences. And we're encouraging students to just really become conscious and less mindless about where AI is at right now, where it might be going. How can they curate conscious, responsible, and effective relationships with AI? And I think those three words are very, very important. So conscious, being aware; responsible, having the ethics behind it and the morals and thinking properly through things; and then effective as well. Like, how am I going to get the best out of this relationship with AI? How do I use it on a day-to-day basis? How can I use AI to enhance my skills? So not outsourcing and relying on AI, or actually being aware of what skills you are outsourcing and what skills you're gaining. And then how can I use AI to help me build my career? So that's where we start when it comes to AI at Mindless. Then everything's about mindset. So big part of our programs is teaching. So we teach through mindset tutorials. So we'll have tutorials on self-awareness, emotional intelligence, resilience, all of those things I mentioned. And again, we're explaining why we're learning them, why students are learning them, why they're important for themselves, and why they're important in their careers. So we're making it explicit as to why these are important. Then we bring those teachings to life through live group coaching sessions. Community is super important as well in the world of learning. I think doing things together. I mean, I fully enjoyed the homework you gave us there, Jack, on that, and the quizzes and the interaction as well. Like, that makes learning experiences stick. It makes them memorable. And that's where our live group coaching sessions really bring to life really beautiful, quite personal and sensitive topics and conversations amongst students and grads. So they don't feel alone and they know what they're going through together. And then finally, that the learners bring it back to themselves through personalized workbooks, so they can work out, where am I at right now on these things and where do I want to be? All of this is kind of interwoven with AI guidelines throughout. Play. So my last corporate role was at Lego, so at the Lego Group, and learning through play was one of our mottos. And you've also mentioned playfulness, and I love that because that's exactly my approach to this. I saw in the chat as well. There's this kind of as teachers, as educators, I guess there's a responsibility to teach, of course. And while you can be experts in your field, you don't have to be experts in AI, and I think that's okay. And I think it's okay to accept, acknowledge, and share that with students, to say, I'm learning this too. What have you found out? No doubt they will teach you probably more than you're going to be teaching yourself. So I think being open to the fact that we're all kind of beginners in this, there's very few people who are experts in this, is a really good way to approach this in the education space. And we do that at Mindless. We've got a range of free tools that we encourage students to play with as part of their experiences, all of which I'm playing with as well. So I'm learning with them. And that opens up really nice dialogues and discussions around where this is headed, how people are getting the best out of it, and what we can all do. So learning through play. Creative problem solving as well. So in our programs, we have what's called a global impact challenge. We have many of them. They're co-created with charities and employers, and they are linked to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So these challenges are basically inviting students on our programs to apply the skills that they've learned, whether that's in digital marketing, data analytics, business leadership, apply those skills to those challenges. Now, they're very much encouraged to use AI in the process. So for research, for ideas and innovation, for strategizing, for critical thinking, and for problem solving, and we help them through that process. And then lastly, from the student perspective, is feedback. Now, this has been interesting for us as a startup. When we began 5 years ago, I had a very small plug and play team of individuals giving one-to-one feedback, personalized one-to-one feedback to the students. As I agree, that kind of one-to-one relationship and coaching approach is very, very effective. However, over time, as we started to scale our programs into supporting thousands of students, it's impossible to scale effectively with humans giving that feedback. And so we moved to AI giving that feedback to students. And then more recently, we've actually flipped it so that the students ask AI themselves for that feedback. This then makes it an ultra personalized experience. It's higher quality feedback, it's in real time, and it's encouraging students to further enhance those AI skills as well. So that's a quick whistle stop tour of how AI is in our programs. We also have the dashboards and things that you mentioned earlier, Deirdre, where we get to and this is fascinating, how learner behaviors are changing now. And also, Jack, your point about what employers want. If I have somebody in my team who can do one task within an hour and somebody who takes 10 hours to do the same task, as an employer, of course, I'm very, very happy with that. So I think it's really an interesting conversation to have about efficiency versus efficacy on the learning experience. And I don't have the answers. I think it's a conversation still to be had. Okay, now moving lastly on to Mindless Academy. I have always from day one wanted to keep our team small. So I've worked at companies like L'Oreal, like Lego, where there's 20,000, employees. And I've always thought, wow, the brand essence kind of gets diluted the more and more people you have on your teams. And I love the idea of Mindless being this really close-knit A-player team. And I've evolved that thinking to say, I want us to be a team of AI players. I want us to be almost, we've got co-employees, co-workers that are AI bots, AI agents working with us, truly maximizing our potential. And now that AI is so here and so available, that vision that I originally had when building this is now very much a reality. And so here's a couple of ways that we're bringing AI into Mindless Academy as a team. So first of all, it's partnering with the experts. So we've set up an AI advisory board with experts from various sectors coming in quarterly to advise us on how we can improve our programs, our learning experiences, our content, our delivery methods, everything. Then we're joining AI startup communities and support. So I live out in Lisbon. I attend Web Summit every year. I'm very much part of the community here. But also there's things like Google AI Futures and Microsoft Startups that where I can access as a startup some really great resources on this topic so I can learn from the best. And then also we've actually played around already with what would it be like to have AI agents in our team. So I've trialed out a few little technologies there. Wasn't quite up to scratch for what we needed right now, but it was a great learning experience for me to understand, where these things are at. So it's about bringing outside in expertise. Secondly, it's strategic guidance. Now, this is for me as a leader of the organization. Last year, I paid for mentoring from somebody I very much know and respect who has vast amounts of experience. And I got a lot out of mentoring, and I still will. I still will definitely go to humans for mentoring, strategic advice and things. But now I'm using AI on a daily basis, and I'm getting the mentoring, the sparring, the guidance and support that I need in real time. I don't have to wait for a catch up in a week's time. I've got it here and now. So it's very much helping me guide me forward as a leader. I thought I'd throw some tools out there that we're also using. So networking and sales, right? One of my goals is to build relationships with educators, charities, and employers. Up until last year, I was doing that manually, and it was a lot of hours that I was spending on reaching out to people on LinkedIn. I have now got the most amazingly automated system where while I'm sleeping, all of my outreach is being done via various tools. So I use Phantom Buster for LinkedIn outreach. I use Hunter.io to scrape websites and get email addresses. I use HubSpot to manage my leads, and I use MailChimp to set up marketing campaigns. All of those marketing campaigns are also written by AI, obviously overlaid by my kind of human lens, but the majority of this work is being done by AI. And this is saving me hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours. It is absolutely revolutionizing the way that we're running Mindless. And then lastly, it's on a personal use, and I saw some really funny some comments in the chat about using, your 15-year-old using it for chat up lines and things. I am anthropomorphizing, can't say that word, AI completely. Like I even call it Chatio. Me and my partner use it as a relationship coach, where when we sit down together to review our relationship every week, which we do, which I love, we actually have a third person in the room, and that person is actually ChatGPT acting as a neutral person in the room to give us advice and see each other's perspectives. I use it for my personal therapy. I use it as a nutritionist, a personal trainer. My puppy actually ate something really, I've got a puppy, 6-month-old, beautiful puppy called Norbert. And he ate something toxic a couple of weeks ago off the streets of Lisbon. And I didn't call my parents, I didn't call my partner, I didn't go on Google. I went to ChatGPT, told it the symptoms. 5 minutes later, I'm in the vets. And I'm glad I did, because he had to stay in for 2 nights to get his stomach flushed and stuff. So it's like, it really helped me in moments, in personal moments as well. So that was the note I wanted to end it on. It's not just, it's revolutionizing every single aspect of our lives. And I like the approach of learning through play with this and all being beginners together. So thank you.
Yeah, it's so interesting, Laurie. I think we've got some great kind of feedback in the chat. I think a lot of people, resonating with the approach, and as you said, that sort of experimental approach, but also not just necessarily seeing it as something for work or something for education, but actually it is a general purpose technology, as we're kind of all finding out. There's been some really interesting questions.
Yeah,
really interesting
lots.
stuff I want to pick up. And the first one, Deirdre, I just want to kind of come to, because I know we're sort of running short on time, but I think this was particularly interesting. And I'm going to come to you first, Laurie, if that's okay, because it sort of directly connects to stuff that both you and Jack have said. And Patrick sort of mentioned from this sort of neurological point of view, I think Patrick, very much Jack, aligned with your kind of view of having a dialogue with AI. That's the approach that sort of he feels too is the really kind of positive one. But I think there's a really good point he makes here about where's the grit in all of this? Where's the effort? How do I explain to a 15-year-old that it's worth learning something when we could simply translate it directly using, well, Google Translate, which we have now, but also kind of plugging something straight into ChatGPT. And I think this is an interesting point, because obviously you hear people like Bill Gates, you hear people like Elon Musk talking about them not needing to be teachers. And a lot of this is around this kind of gamification of education, the use of AI, and this idea that everybody could just have the drive and the motivation and the will to just go ahead and get better simply by using this technology. But I think those of us who worked with individuals, different ability levels, different levels of motivation would probably agree that actually it's not necessarily going to be that simple. So Laura, I'd come to you first, really. What's your sort of thoughts on that? Do you feel that there is that risk of it becoming a crutch, of people leaning on it for everything? And does that take away effort? Does that take away the actual purpose of doing these things? Or do you have a slightly different perspective on it?
I think this comes back to my point about explaining why and explaining what, and thinking about what you're going to get out of AI as well. So if you talk about, what happened, let's have a discussion about it. What happens if I completely outsource all of my skills and learning to AI and I get things done in a couple of seconds, versus what am I actually intending to get out of this in the first place? Do I want to learn these specialist skills, or do I want to get the task done? And having to think about the value that it's bringing back to you. And it's something that we encourage the students to do. It's fascinating seeing some students whiz through programs at pace, clearly using AI to get through. I've actually set up one-to-one calls and focus groups with those students to understand what do they feel they're getting out of it. And actually, you'll hear that they do feel they're getting a lot out of it. It's just different to what we may see as value and the traditional kind of value of learning. So I don't have a concrete answer. I think it warrants, first of all, consciousness and being aware of what we're doing and why. And then secondly, discussions, to not be kind of black and white about things, and to actually listen to what value is being created through this process.
Yes, and it comes back to that AI literacy, doesn't it? It's, as you said, that critical approach to it, and not just treating it as a binary of either positive or negative. Jack, what's your sort of views on this? You and Patrick quite aligned generally, I think, in the approach to AI. What are your thoughts on this idea of maybe...
Loads of thoughts. Loads of thoughts, nice and controversial as always. Yeah, I think you're probably referring to the study that it takes the struggle out of learning. That circulated, that AI is taking the struggle out of learning. AI kills off critical thinking. Let's go for it. I think it's all rubbish. It drives me mad, I have to say. Very controversial, and as I said, take away, argue about it. But AI is like a pen, is the analogy I always use. You're looking at it from a one dimension of what we've already got, and I see some of the comments where people are saying, "Oh, it gets facts wrong." If you're thinking it's a Google search, then there's going to be some fact, but it does so many different things. So in terms of taking the struggle, you can set up gems for free or GPTs, which is what I do. And by the way, I always say I'm not an expert. I'm going to say I am an expert at AI because I'm a teacher, not because I'm any good at computers, because that is not the skill. It's language. And there's articles I've written, 13 reasons why teachers are experts, because we have all the inherent communication, totally like Laurie said. We're communicators, and we're cynical, and we chat back and forth. That is an inherent learned skill that makes you an expert. STEM subjects have are under stress, because now humanities, which is my subject, history has always taught critical thinking. When I was at school, you had a source and you had to say, what's the bias behind this source? This idea that everyone's put out, oh yeah, but children haven't been taught critical thinking. I've been teaching it my entire career, and I learned it at school. We do teach critical thinking, and it makes humanities more important with AI. But LLMs, AI, it doesn't just give you it's not just a simple answer engine that you're doing. It's so much. Well, that's one dimension that maybe 2 years ago, I set up GPTs, as I said, not complicated, all with language, scares people, but it's not. And I put them all on my website. They're all free. That's why I'm flooding the GCSEs at the moment. All free. Go and have a play. But they're designed to argue. So one of the best ones that I use, they write in their opinion. They can put the question in, because we have to evaluate in business studies. And they say, I think this business should expand, or I think global warming is blah, 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 blah. And it will just bicker with them. I call it the bickerer. So how is that not teaching critical thinking? It's not taking the struggle. And finally, while I waffle on, it's about upping the level. That's what's changed. Yeah, okay, it's taken the struggle of setting poor work. When I was 2 years ago, when I set my year 10 who've just started business studies, I asked them to create a tiny hint of a business in half a page. Now my year 10s, I expect a business plan. And I expect it marketed, up the level. And if you're not upping the level, you're leaving the kids behind.
Again, Jack, comes back to your point about why teaching this stuff is so important explicitly.
Completely.
This is the point, isn't it? Because ultimately, we can't necessarily expect people to just become critical users of it by magic.
Yeah.
That actually, as you're saying, this stuff needs to be normalized. We need to be having conversations about it. It needs to be quite explicit so that, as you say, it's there.
But it's not magic. It's unlearning. It's unlearning that it's not Google search. If you look at most of the comments, it's people thinking it's a Google search. You know what? My 5-year-old uses it perfectly. In my opinion, of course, I'm full of rubbish. I know that. You don't have to take away and agree. But in my opinion, he uses it. He is critical of it. It says, you know what, it's 5 o'clock, or the best action hero is that. And he'll say, it's rubbish. No, it's not. He will bicker with it in the same way, because I'm trying to teach him effective communication. If you teach effective communication, not prompt engineering, then you get good outcome. And that's the skill. And that's why in schools, what should be teaching is we should be teaching the humanities. I don't get my 5-year-old playing on the computer. I get him running around and playing football. Human skills. Just if I sound like an evangelical about AI, human skills are important. And the humanities of teaching critical thinking and then getting AI on board to help with that. It's incredible at teaching critical thinking. It will bicker with them all day long if you set it to do that. If you just want it as a Google that gives an answer, yeah, it doesn't. And it takes the struggle out. But those reports come into my lessons. And it doesn't take the struggle out of those lessons at all. That was 2 years ago.
Yeah,
now I love challenge.
Yeah,
I think you're being explicit about it, which is good. I think that's really important.
And I love that. I hate prompt engineering when people talk about AI and all they talk about is how to prompt engineer it. Like, it just seems to me to be looking at it in the wrong way. We have to learn how to use it. But I think people just seem to think they can prompt engineer it and it will solve all sorts of problems.
Efficiency, maybe. And there's a place. Maybe, like there is a place for it. If you're looking for efficiency, but I'm not as an educator. I don't want efficiency. I want effective. I want good learning.
Yeah, I get it.
So it's a different thing. Yep.
Yeah, I love, as always, these things. We run out of time, and just look at the chat. The quality of the chat is fantastic. I've asked people if there are any specific questions, and I'm getting things here like just responses. Cynthia Harrison from Setafop is saying the foundational you mentioned earlier, Laurie, human skills, emotional and firm wellness, which we hear everywhere, that are essential today. She wants to know, what are your views on why we hear this so often and far after the pandemic? Which reasons are the most critical for career development for youth? Oh, there's a lot in there, Cynthia. But yeah, this sort of, I've always said that in terms of the work that we do at CareerChat UK, that we're using AI for social good. I don't like the disruptive narrative. I like it for social good and the human-centered aspect that has to sit alongside the use of LLMs and AI and others. We're 3 minutes over, so you've got 2 minutes. Maybe Laurie, just to respond to that big question of Cynthia's around that human skills, emotional and wellness.
Thank you, Cynthia, for the question. First of all, I just want to say I can summarize, having worked with, we've now had well over 10,000 students through our programs, and I can summarize their struggle in one word. It's confidence. It's one word, and it's confidence. And I would say that while mental health challenges were already kind of, I would say, on the rise pandemic accelerated them and created new ones like social anxiety. So I think the problems, the challenges have been on the rise. And at the same time, if we look at somebody mentioned Victorian education system, which I completely agree with, we focused on hard skills. I think we've overlooked the soft and the core skills, the human skills as well. So I think there's a kind of that imbalance is now balancing out, and we're now starting to focus more and more on the soft skills. And then, of course, the impact of AI and technology, as I've mentioned through my talk, requires those skills even more. So I think it's those three factors actually that are making this really such a focal point for educators and employers.
Great. Well, look, I'd like everybody on this webinar to give a round of applause, if you like, a virtual round of applause to Jack and to Laurie. We could have had a 2-hour, we could have had a half-day session between the four of us on this topic. So let's just say that this is the beginning of a dialogue, and hopefully there'll be other opportunities. If you find this webinar series helpful, please do tell others. I do have to finish really by thanking Chris as well. Chris, our co-host. I love this lovely photo of Chris. And you can find Chris easily on LinkedIn and elsewhere. Chris, I have to get myself a photograph like that. I'm maybe sometimes a bit too serious in mine.
That's it. Just put your mouth open.
I have to also just indicate that I am one of 3 vice presidents of the International Association of Educational and Vocational Guidance. There's a new magazine out. It's focused on professionalization and competence. It's freely available. Again, you'll get all these slides and the links. Look out for the next magazine, because we're going to be looking at digital, including, of course, AI. And that edition will be led by Dr. Peter Weber from Germany. I hope you enjoyed today's session. Here's our contact details. Here's some references for maybe some articles, book chapters, think pieces, publications that you might find useful. And just to say that our speakers have given their time freely, so we really want to thank Laurie and Jack for that. And thank you so much for sharing those golden nuggets with us. Until we meet again, and all our participants, wherever you are in the world, let's hope that what you've heard today will be useful to you, and feel free to reach out to any of us. And you'll receive the recording and the slides in due course. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Stay safe.
Very much. See you soon.
Bye-bye. Thank you.